20 years ago today, Nirvana's Nevermind was released, and everything changed. And who better to celebrate with than the band members themselves? Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic, and producer Butch Vig are all here in the SiriusXM studios and ready to answer your questions. This is SiriusXM's Town Hall with Nirvana. Now, to moderate this historic event, live from the SiriusXM headquarters in New York City, here's your host, The Daily Show's Jon Stewart.
Good evening. Good evening. We join tonight to celebrate 5 friends from Orlando, Florida, who under the tutelage of super producer Lou Pearlman produced the harmonies that would... Wait, what is this? Oh, I'm sorry, this is the NSYNC reunion. That's the introduction for that. I apologize. Welcome, I'm Jon Stewart. We are here at the SiriusXM Town Hall with Nirvana. And we are here with young Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic, and Butch Vig. Super producer Butch Vig. And we are going to take some questions from some contest winners from around the country who've flown here to talk to you guys. It's the 20-year reunion of Nevermind, which was the epic album that you guys really... I just want to very quickly, to get into the idea of how Nirvana changed the cultural landscape, you have to put yourself really back in the mindset of the early 90s music scene. Back then, to buy music, you still had to leave your house. The biggest player in the music scene was MTV. Arsenio had just hosted his 4th straight music award show celebrating Poison, Vanilla Ice, and CNC Music Factory. Music admitted it was literally made in a factory. And so for those of us who'd grown up on a less decorative music aesthetic, times were lean. The Replacements, Husker Du, the Minutemen, the Clash, the Jam, they weren't in heavy rotation. So the first time I heard Nevermind, I couldn't believe it. It had everything: sonic menace, melody, urgency, irony. It was like the Beatles had swallowed Black Flag. And I couldn't wait to love them and then watch everyone else love them and then be really mad at them for everyone else loving them, while myself still secretly loving them. But I remember thinking, these guys are great, and they're going to make it so that music we all like will be on the TV. And also, a chance, a get-together like this is usually just pure glee, where we just shit on each other for what we were like 20 years ago. But obviously, Kurt not being here, it always makes any nostalgia mixed with sadness, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. So welcome, guys. Dave, Butch, Chris.
Hi, John.
Hey,
nice
John.
to see you guys.
Good to see you.
I want to get to the audience members and get them to ask their questions. So, Robert, you want to go for? Is that Robert? You over there? All right.
This is from Rob Contando. I'm from Springfield, PA.
Beautiful.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here. Really.
Nice to meet you.
My question was, when you guys recorded the album, were you all in the same room? What was the process like when you did the album?
Yeah, we were in the same room.
Well,
It was old school.
yeah, it was old school. So that the place we recorded the record was a studio called Sound City, which was in Van Nuys, California. It's in the valley outside of Hollywood and all that stuff. And so it was kind of this rundown, dumpy old studio in a warehouse complex, away from any of the cool glamour or glitz of LA and Hollywood. So it was basically, there was one big room that was Studio A, and it was this great drum room that was, I don't know, it was kind of the size of a racquetball court or something, right? Like a small gym.
Like a basketball gym, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't play racquetball.
Yeah, Chris didn't play racquetball. And then there was a small control room. And so the way we did it is we had the drums in the drum room, and Chris and Kurt and I were in the same room together, I think, and we would just record live.
Yeah, we set up basically some headphones, so they were... Dave was right in the center of the room, and Chris and Kurt were about 5 or 6 feet away, but their amps were set in little closets, little ISO booths. Kurt's amp was in the... There's a tiny little passageway between the studio and the control room, and we set your Ampeg rig up, I think, right? Or, there was a side hallway. Not to get too technical with it, but basically they were standing about from here to there, so about 5 feet apart.
I should just say Butch is pointing right now. This is radio,
Yeah.
so
You can't.
so,
You can't
so just
see me
now
pointing.
Butch was pointing.
But yeah, we tracked everything live. It was kind of the sense of the sound of the record that we wanted to get. And I didn't know when we went down to start the album, but they had been rehearsing for 3 months solid every single day, like 10 hours a day. That's all they did. We were doing some press last week, and Chris and Dave said that the reason they loved to go to rehearsal is because the apartment they had was so shitty and so cold, they couldn't wait to get out of there. And so basically lived in that rehearsal room. And when we came down to track Nevermind, they were whip tight. I mean, super, super tight.
Standing or sitting, Chris, when you were recording?
Oh, I was standing.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Did you guys, so it was an active process, you know, sometimes you have this idea of guys sitting around in a chair kind of with the headphones on doing it, but were you guys up and active?
I was kind of feeling it. You know, there's a rhythm going on, and standing so close to the drums, because even though you have the headphones on, you can feel that kick drum, hear it, feel it, snare pop in. And then they would bring like the bass and the guitar through the headphones. And then Kurt would do a scratch vocal, but you could never tell him to like take it easy. And so he'd blow his voice out during the scratch vocal.
That happened on every song, by the way. He'd blow his voice out in one take.
I remember not believing that it was 3 people. I remember listening to Nevermind and thinking, there's no way they get that much sound out of 3 people.
You know, the funny thing is that, I guess by today's standards, it's a really simple record.
Mm-hmm.
We probably had like 8 microphones on the drums. You maybe had 1 or 2 guitar tracks, a bass track, and a vocal, and that was it. And I think that's why it sounded so huge, because there wasn't 1,000 things going on. It was as simple as we could possibly make it. When we were working on stuff, I know for me personally, playing drums with Nirvana was a process of simplification. Like, I didn't want to be the guy from Rush, you know, who's awesome. He's an amazing drummer, but, you know, what we did was kind of like, we tried to pack as much into 4 minutes with just these 3 simple elements, you know. It really was a powerful group in that each sound was just huge because there was nothing in the way.
Right. Robert Tellerman, West Islip, New
Hi
York.
guys, nice to meet you.
Hey.
Hey, Robert.
My question is, first of all, before I start, Nevermind was the first CD I ever owned. Swear to God.
Right on.
What was the atmosphere like during the Nevermind recording sessions, as opposed to like In Utero or Bleach or anything else you guys did?
It was like a fun-loving time. We had, you know, we'd come into the studio around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and get going and be there till around 9 or 10. Then we'd like go to the beach at night because it was like springtime in California, so it was kind of magical being under the stars and watching the moon, or
Especially taking mushrooms.
I was.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Then,
Well, it's funny because also, you know, that whole slacker generation thing totally didn't apply to us musically. Like, when we went to work on music, we were like serious about it. I don't think we were late. We would show up and try really hard, and you know, we wanted to really make a good record, I think.
Yeah, again, just we had it all together. Like, you hear the stories of some bands, or like in the 70s, the big bands go in and they'll just like be 4 months in the studio and see what happens. Well, we didn't have that ethic, because when we started recording like our first demos, or the like Bleach, like studio time was expensive. Like, it was like, you know, $1,000 a day or $600 to record a record, which was a lot of money. And so we made sure that we had it all down, and when we showed up and we got down to business, and we just did it. So we had that work ethic. That's what Dave was saying.
It was pretty fun. But I mean, when we were coming down there too, I remember thinking, like, oh my God, we signed to a big record company, and we're making this serious record in this big serious Los Angeles studio, and we got down there, and it didn't seem like a big serious.
The place was kind of a dump.
It was kind of a dump.
The place was kind of a dump,
And they were about to close, I think.
Yeah.
They were sort of on their last legs.
We got a deal there. I think it was $600 a day for studio time. Pretty damn cheap.
I actually just saw in the reissue thing, there's a booklet that comes with it. It has all this paperwork from the the original session, and I was looking at the budget for the album. It's all typed out, and I just now found out that when we were making that record, Butch was staying at the $90 hotel, and we were staying at the $70 hotel. So that's where all the money went.
70 divided by 3.
Yeah, exactly.
How long did it take? How long were you in the studio for?
It's a fast record, man. We tracked for 16 days. The record was recorded in 16 days.
Is that, as soon as those 16 days were over, did you guys walk out and think, that's the record, or?
Well, there was a little bit extra work we did. We went in to mix the record at a studio called Devonshire in North Hollywood. There was, I think we did a couple of vocals. You sang a vocal there, just a few bits and pieces. We were more enamored with the fact that Ozzy Osbourne was in the studio next to us, and
like you'd bump into him in the hall. It's Ozzy.
No, and we would stand outside the studio he was in and listen to when he would sing. And when he sings one take, it doesn't sound like Ozzy, but then when he does the second take, he goes back and double tracks himself, and it's slightly out of tune. Then it sounds like Ozzy.
Awesome.
We would sneak down the hallway and stand out there trying to see, is he going to sing now? Is he going to sing now?
And we went back. I remember when we all wrote Ozzy on our fingers, because he's got that tattoo. We got trashed at our hotel and wrote Ozzy on our fingers. And then I remember they had that pool table, and I remember playing pool with Kurt, and Ozzy walks in and was talking to someone. He kind of looked at us and gave us this dirty look, and then walked out, and then we realized we all had Ozzy on our fingers, and it was so fucking embarrassing. I was mortified. That was so bad.
How did you know if Ozzy was in the studio?
And then someone at the studio said, "You know how you can tell when Ozzy's at the studio?" I said, "How?" He said, "There's piss on the floor around the toilet."
Everyone's got to have a trademark. But that, I think one of the things that was really appealing about the band is you had that, there was like that sonic menace, but there was like a doofus quality beneath there, like that was playful. Like there were those moments where that came through. There was a childlike quality that made everything a lot more appealing and accessible.
I don't think we were so like, we weren't so professional that we seemed like a band with really heavy aspirations or anything, I mean, to imagine that something like this could actually happen, like it didn't really seem like this would happen, so it was sort of playful in that way. Like, I always felt like it was almost like a scam, in a way, like these people are paying for us to stay in this hotel for a month.
Just so you know, on the radio right now, Chris is shushing Dave.
I mean,
with the scam aspect.
It just never
right.
seemed. So it was hard to take anything seriously sometimes, and that was I think that was a lot of our defense mechanism too. When things got too weird, we just goof around.
Right. But you looked like you were having fun. I remember there was footage of you guys at Reading where you really, like, it's like a slapstick trio.
Well, it was like silliness, and that was the sense of humor. Like, if it was really stupid, it was funny.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it was something you had to be. It was if it was super stupid, then it was super funny. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know if I could explain it. We would just laugh all the time.
Yeah.
I think there's a popular misconception that the band like just traveled with this black cloud over our head all the time. It was so dark. They're so dark. But it was so not that way, I mean, you see a lot of the videos, like, of interviews and things, where we're always just laughing. We're just cracking jokes, and always just...
Right.
We were usually laughing at the people that were interviewing us.
What? Bastards. Gerardo Maine from Illinois. Where are you?
How you doing, guys?
What's up?
My question was, the one thing I really liked about you guys is the energy was so high that at the end of the set, everything on the stage was destroyed. I want to know if you brought that into the studio, how much stuff was broken in there.
There was really only one time there was mass destruction in the studio. And I know exactly how it happened. These guys will remember, too. We had a few aborted attempts at recording Lithium. For whatever reason, the band kept speeding up. And
What do you mean, whatever reason?
for whatever reason,
Why does a band speed up?
That's
For
when the
whatever
black
reason-
cloud came over the
Exactly.
studio. Like,
there was a momentary black cloud that came over Sound City.
It's my fault.
And,
My bad.
And it was probably about the.
he's a spaz. I mean, it's all right.
I mean,
Can't
we
help
were
it.
we were halfway into the record. I think it was like maybe the 5th or 6th song that we recorded when we attempted Lithium, and after about 3 or 4 takes, something snapped in Kurt, and he just started. He launched into this song, and I didn't know what it was, and they just launched into this crazy, insane jam, and it was kind of scary. I had never seen that kind of sort of frustration and rage in Kurt. I mean, then the veins in his neck and just what was going on inside him, and that's of course the song that ended up being the bonus track on Nevermind, but it was kind of scary to see. I have to admit. At the end of it, he smashed up his guitar, and the whole thing, luckily, because we were trying to record Lithium, was all captured on tape. And I remember sort of this pause, like, okay, I guess that's it for today, you guys. That sounded pretty cool. Okay, I didn't really know what to say, and I went out and Kurt just walked off, and you guys were like, okay, well, I guess we'll just go home, and then I was like, okay, well, first I got to find another left-handed guitar. We're right away, and so I called up their management, and we went out to find a guitar, and then I pulled Dave aside and said, do you think you could play with a click track? And he said, well, finish the story here.
I mean, honestly, the first time a drummer hears that the producer wants him to work with a click track, it's like getting stabbed in the heart with a rusty fork.
Right.
You know, it's such a bummer. And so we did. That was the first time I'd ever done it.
And
it turned out okay.
He nailed it. Like, I think you adjusted on one take. You were adjusting your headphones, and then
Explain click track though.
the click track is when you find a metronome of
metronome.
something, either just something to keep the steady beat all the way through the song.
Right. So for drummers that can't keep a steady beat,
For the
And
record,
speed
Dave Grohl
up.
is raising his hand right now.
too
on
much in the
radio.
chorus, producers asked to play the click track. Yeah, I mean that was a big life experience.
There
for
was
me.
a black cloud over the studio that day.
Chris, do you remember thinking, had you seen that before from Kurt and the frustration and
Oh yeah, many times. He smashed guitars at rehearsal, and so, and we would play songs at rehearsal where we were serious. And we would go through the set, or we'd be working on songs, and sometimes we would just go into outer space and go into these jams, and some of them were pretty good, and some of them were not so good, or whatever. But it was just kind of like, just that expression. And so when you hear that Endless Nameless song, that's a good representation of some of the things that we would do. Is just kind of like being abstract or whatever. And then, because Kurt could be really mellow and sweet, then he would flip and just be like really intense, right? And so that's what a lot of Nevermind's music is Kurt's, and Nirvana's music is Kurt's intensity was captured, through the music. And so,
how did you bring him back? And what was the sort of refractory period? When something like that would happen, would you be able to say, like, you know what, tomorrow morning we'll be cool again, or was there
it was
something-
never like a catastrophe or anything. It's like, well,
Right.
That's just the way it was, and we would just kind of relax, and things would be fine, for better, for worse. So,
I just sort of ignored it. It was like, okay,
Right.
let's record Lithium. Everybody walked in the next case, said, Dave, here's the click track. Get your headphones right. I think they did it on the first take. And by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the song was done. So
Right.
it was just like, let's plow ahead.
So much uncooler to break a metronome on stage, really. Than
Oh
actually-
my gosh!
really.
Yeah.
You really think about it. It's just not really as
That would
cool.
not be cool.
Yeah, that would not be cool.
At all.
We're going to talk to Randall now from Texas. Randall?
Going back to learning, back before recording, back to practice, learning Nevermind. Smells Like Teen Spirit. What was the mood in the room the first time you played that song all the way through? Was there an inkling of, oh my God,
No.
we changed music?
No.
I don't think
No,
so.
no, wait. I know. Yes, the second I walked into rehearsal in North Hollywood, and that was the first song they played in rehearsal, and I stood up and started sweating, walking around going, oh my God, this is super intense and sounds amazing. And when it was done, you guys sort of stopped playing, and I didn't know what to say. I just said, play it again. And they played it again, and I remember I took a few notes. There was very little that we had to do with the arrangement, but it sounded so good. I mean, it was so powerful and anthemic sounding. And also, that was the first time I heard Dave play with the band. And going back to all the rehearsal time they had done, it was super tight and sounded so good.
I mean, when we were in that rehearsal space, we were coming up with a lot of stuff. You know, there were a lot of songs that usually the way we'd start practice, which was really cool, was we would just start jamming.